Hello, Georgia Tech fans. I am Alex McCready's. Alongside me, Ken Suguria. We're at Hard Rock Stadium here in Miami Gardens, Florida. Well, another heartbreaking loss for Georgia Tech. Hopefully for them, this does not become a theme of the season. But a last-second field goal, 8 seconds left in the game, gives Miami a 25-24 victory. I can't imagine the mood in the locker room was good after that.
Well, I mean, technically, yeah, they don't, the players come out for their press conference, but just kind of judging by their body language, and certainly, you can certainly conclude that, yeah, this was a tough way to lose. This is a game that a lot of them had a lot of, emotional and emotional kind of emotion and physical effort and time put in this one. And they, the team has had their number, and to have it, almost in your grasp and to let it go, it was crushing, I'm sure.
So this makes 8 out of the last 9 times these two teams have played, Miami has won, including 5-0 here at Hard Rock Stadium against Paul Johnson. We'll get to the running game here in a second, but this was just an injury-riddled game. I can't remember ever being a part of a Georgia Tech game where I've just been like, man, they're just going down like flies.
Right. Yeah. We might be missing somebody, but Brant Mitchell is starting linebacker. Leading tackler goes out, something to his midsection. And then who else? Carvante Benson, your I guess a leading running back rusher. He had a something with his right leg. He left the game. And then Sean Davis, the kicker. I think he got hurt making a tackle on that long kickoff return at the start of the second half. And then I think it was Lance Austin. He left. So yeah, it's. I mean, I guess you can't say that cost him the game. Obviously, Miami was dealing with his own injuries as well, and I think that the backups kind of acquitted themselves pretty well. But yeah, a pretty. I think it was maybe the heat and just kind of the accumulation of that, and then just Miami plays a very physical style. And that ends up, with guys on the sideline.
I mean, it's just a strange game. In the fourth quarter, the skies, I have never seen the skies open, and just it was like trying to look through a waterfall at one point. And that really seemed to just kind of turn the tide of this game.
Maybe a little bit.
The crowd just seemed to get more energized. I was in the Miami locker room, or not the locker room, the Miami post-game press conference afterwards, and Rick said it. Their defensive coordinator, Manny Diaz, said it. A couple of their players said it. They just, when that rain came, they just felt more energized. I don't know, did any of the Tech guys notice anything?
We didn't ask them specifically about it, but certainly, I mean, you could tell the fans, they really got into it. There's something kind of primal, I guess, about a downpour like that. And maybe also, too, they could kind of feel the game turning. And, Miami was giving the fans energy, and they were giving it back. And, you could kind of sense that the things were changing at that point once that rain started falling so heavily.
Things really changed for the Georgia Tech run game after, I would say, their second touchdown drive. I mean, the first 2 touchdown drives, they just marched down the field. Actually, both touchdown drives wind up taking under 4 minutes, which is kind of unusual for the Georgia Tech triple option offense. But after that, this Miami defense just seemed to have their number. Yeah,
it was. I mean, I think they kind of figured out something probably going into the week. Georgia Tech did about maybe being able to run the sideline alleys with the A-backs on tosses, and it was working really, really well the first 3. I mean, really the first drive was 2 and out or 3 and out,
and they tried to go up the middle of that.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, Paul Johnson's one of those guys that if it's working, we're going to keep doing it until you stop it. And I wrote it I think I have it. They were 18 plays, 141 drives, 18 plays, 141 yards, 2 touchdowns, and the rest of the game, 43 yards, 140 yards, 43 plays, 140 yards, and a field goal. They got the touchdown off of that return. So, I think Miami kind of figured it out. Here's what we need to do to kind of counter move, and that seemed to work. And I think I'm sure Paul Johnson knew kind of what they were doing and how to fix it, but for whatever reason they weren't able to adjust on the field.
That was the other thing too. When Miami stops that run, when Miami stops the run, he has confidence in Daquan to throw the ball, but it didn't seem like, of course Paul Johnson, he's gonna force you to try and stop that run. But do you think at some point they should have almost abandoned the run and started throwing the football a little bit more?
I guess maybe it's one of those hindsight 2020 things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think part of the problem too is that Miami was bringing a lot of pressure when they were throwing the ball.
That is true.
And maybe it's not as much if it's play action and it's not third and long. But yeah, and I was thinking too, maybe because they were able to pursue the front side, the play side so well, maybe you try a reverse or something like that. I mean, I'm sure that there's reasons for what happened, but yeah, obviously what they were trying to do wasn't working. And actually, Paul Johnson said something about this after. He said that they kind of, I don't know if it was conceding, but recognizing that they were having trouble getting the ball to the perimeter, but then it's a game of such few possessions. They only had 7 more possessions after the second. And so you try something and it doesn't work, and now you got a punt. So it was just a matter of having such few plays after that maybe you wanted to try something, you get 1 or 2 cracks at it, and if it doesn't work, then you kind of shelve it. So a lot of I think probably because too the defense wasn't playing as well and keeping Miami in the field longer, that you were having a few opportunities to try different things, I guess.
So I'm curious, because that last drive, if you were watching the game, 6 straight bubble screens for Miami. To basically, they started at their own 10 or 11 yard line and basically managed to get all the way up the field just throwing these bubble screens. And it's six straight bubble screens.
Right.
I'm curious, what did because the Georgia Tech defense didn't change at all.
Right.
I mean, did Paul Johnson say anything about?
He was clearly frustrated by it. I think someone asked him about what was going through your mind as you were watching this, and he said, stop the bubble screen was something along those lines. And I think he wasn't. I think he was saying maybe they kind of figured out the proper response to it, bringing the corner or widening out the one linebackers, but I think they figured it out too late. And so it's funny. It's kind of Paul Johnson got done to him what he does so often.
Yeah.
The opponent found something that was working and didn't go away from it, and smartly so, until they could stop it, which they couldn't.
Overall, this defense did what it normally does: bend, don't break.
Right.
4 field goals from Miami. It's about what you would normally expect from this Georgia Tech defense. They're going to give up yards, but when the other opposing team gets down close to the red zone, they finally buck up.
Right.
With that being said, I'm curious, what did you think of the defense overall today?
What, 25 points?
Yeah.
And so, in some ways, you feel like then they forced a lot of punts, and they didn't get any turnovers, right?
No.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, okay. Honestly, Miami, I think, well, maybe we'll see it. Probably we'll see that they're a pretty good team, and so to hold them to 25 points says something. Obviously, it feels, for Tech fans, probably feels kind of hollow, but and obviously the way you lose at the end, where the only thing I compare that to is if anybody watches Georgia out there, the tip play, the miracle at Jordan Hare, when they basically gave Auburn the game. Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, that's almost what I would compare this to in a way. Just you have the game, you're right there on defense,
and that play. It's not like that bounces twice and he catches it. Yeah, that's. They probably couldn't do that again if they tried. And Lamont Simmons had to defend really well.
Honestly, this is like last year against Pitt. When AJ Gray tipped the ball straight to the
Corey
tight
Griffin,
end. Corey Griffin tipped the ball straight to the tight end, and he ran for a touchdown. I mean, it's the game of football.
Unfortunately, Tech fans have a lot of experience with this, and I'm sure they could reel off 10 games like this that were just, I made me think of the 2012 season where you start Labor Day night. I don't know if you remember this. They lost to Virginia Tech in overtime. Virginia Tech made a 4th down play at some point and to tie, I think, in regulation. And then 3 or 4 weeks later, they lose to Miami at home in an overtime game. Kind of a weird game in a different way than this one, but a weird game. And Tech seems to have that neck, unfortunately. And I know there's probably games you remember, people forget the 15 game at Florida State and so forth. But it's the tough one to stick with you. But yeah, there's a few of them in their history.
And that's the thing too. Both of their losses this year have been tough ones. I mean, they're 2 plays away from being 5-0.
Right.
It's just It's the game of football.
Yeah.
It's just the way the ball bounces. I'd like to point out, I remember telling you when we did our Facebook Live on Thursday, Tech was going to have to score 28 points to win this game.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and I believe you, but that's very prescient.
I don't know. It's by sheer luck, but
it's funny. I mean, you know, there's. I'm sure. I was thinking about this, going back and looking at what could have happened. Like that, that 48-yard pass to Ricky June, a very good play, but it was underthrown a little bit. But if you get them in stride as a touchdown, and you get to that 27 points instead of 24, because they settled for a field goal on the drive, and obviously, Miami probably could point out plays too, but yeah, I'm sure they're going to be kicking themselves because you're right, 2 plays in 5-0, and you think of yourself as being in the hunt for the playoff, and now I think you can say they're out with 2 losses, so yeah, and they've got Clemson coming up, and the rest of the schedule
it's brutal.
Wake Forest is good, Duke
Virginia.
Virginia.
Where did Virginia come from?
Yeah. I mean, it looks like Broncos got things figured out, and then obviously Georgia at the end. So it's as good as you felt about this team.
They get tougher.
Today at 3:29 or even at 5 o'clock. It's a rough ride home. Yeah.
You know what's not gonna be a rough ride home? Our ride home. You know why? Because this guy is the man. You can follow him on his Twitter. Check out all of his stuff.
I'll give you $5 later for saying that. Yeah.
Check out all of his stuff on the AJC website. Always a pleasure. He produces great stuff. And this was just a fun game to watch.
Yeah,
I'm kind of happy I got to come down and share it with you.
Yeah.
So, Ken Suguria, I'm Alex McCready. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week when Georgia Tech takes on Wake Forest.
All right.